If you're at home right now thinking about how you could start a lucrative business from home, but you don't have the startup funds in order to do so, then today's tutorial is about a killer business strategy that produces a product that people are actually very happy to overpay for. So you need to watch this one. This is Milton Friedman, renowned American economist. He explains that there are 4 ways of spending money. You could spend your own money on yourself, where you prioritize frugality and value. Or you could spend your own money on others, where you prioritize the sentiment over the price. Then there's spending other people's money on yourself, where you prioritize the value but not so much the price. And finally, spending other people's money on other people, where neither the price nor the value is prioritized. But let's let Milton explain it precisely.
Well, you can spend your own money on yourself. And when you spend your own money on yourself, you're very careful of what you spend it on, and you make sure that you get the most for your dollar. You can spend your own money on somebody else. You give gifts to other people. You take people out to dinner. And when you spend your own money on somebody else, you're very careful that you don't spend too much. You try to keep down the amount you spend, but you don't worry very much about what the other fellow's getting from it. You don't pay anything like as much attention to the gifts you buy for other people as to the things you buy for yourself. Or you can spend somebody else's money, as when you're spending the government's money. I say the government's money, the taxpayers' money, which the government has control over. Now you're spending somebody else's money. Let's say you're spending your boss's money. You're out to lunch on an expense account, but you're spending it on yourself. You're very careful that you get good things for your money. You try to have a good lunch and pick the right things, but you're not very much worried about whether you get the cheapest.
Spend all you want.
Spend all you want, and you'll be careless. Now, what happens when you spend somebody else's money on somebody else? You're a distributor of welfare funds. Well, you're interested in making your own life as good as you can. And most people have humane instincts and want to do the best they can, but you're not going to be anything like as careful in spending somebody else's money on somebody else. So there are 4 ways in which you can spend money.
Now for today's tutorial, we'll be focusing on how to leverage the spending psychology of method number 2. Gift spending. So guys, when it comes to gift spending and spending your money on others, the value of the purchase becomes secondary to the intent of the purchase. And that's exactly why giving most gifts like food, such as wine, candy, chocolate, aside from that, the best gift are actually candles. But what is it that makes candles such a perfect gift? Think about it. It's the ultimate safe gift. Candles are visually appealing. Even if the recipient doesn't light it, it still looks nice, practical, and consumable. If they do use it, it creates a lovely ambiance. Compact and non-intrusive, unlike oversized gifts, candles don't take up much space. And it's universally appreciated. You can never go wrong with a pleasant scent or an aesthetic candle. And here's the best part, because it's a gift, people are less concerned about getting the best deal. They just want something that looks good and feels thoughtful, making them willing to overpay for a beautifully presented candle. Now fellas, bear with me, I am no fan of candles myself. In fact, I have to admit that every single time I pass by the Yankee Candle Company inside of a mall, it smells nothing short to me than a chemical spill, all right? Because the overwhelming collective amount of candles in there, the fragrances are just so overpowering. But despite my aversion to it, I can't help but notice one thing about the shop. It always has a steady flow of customers. So while I kind of dislike candles, a single one is actually not so bad. So today, we're going to break down exactly how to start up a business from home using websites such as Etsy and Shein. Are you ready? Let's do this. Before we start today's lesson, I want to point out that there are 3 great websites that you could get all of your beginning equipment from, which is AliExpress, Temu, and Shein. However, the difference is that Both Temu and Shein have US warehouses, while AliExpress takes a long time for anything to actually show up. So we're not going to be using AliExpress today. But between Temu and Shein, I also wanted to point out there is a lot of things on Shein that you could also get just like Temu and not just clothing. So today we're going to be focusing on just Shein. So before we jump into any type of business, we need to do our research first. That's just simply the wise thing to do. However, a lot of gurus out there will tell you got to do your research first, right? But they never specifically get into exactly how you should do your research, how much of it that you should do before you could fully assess, yeah, we should get into this business or we should completely avoid this business. So on this channel, I have devised a framework for people to actually follow. It is actionable and practical, and it looks something like this. This is something that I call the 4 lenses of scrutiny, and this is how we apply it to everything that we think about before we get into a business or whether or not we should do it. So you want to look at things from all different kind of perspectives so that you have a good grasp of the situation. So you want to look at it through the seller's lens, the buyer's lens, the reviewer's lens, and the scholar's lens. So let me break down exactly how that works first. So when we jump over here, the initial steps of research is for us to just go ahead and pick a passion, any passion, whatever it is that we want to do. And we already know that today's lesson, we're going to be talking about candles. So we need to get specific, and specifically, we're going to be doing candles. So normally you would define 2 or 3 products when you get into this niche, but we already know that it's going to be specifically candles. So now we're going to imagine selling the products. Well, a candle is small, it's easily packaged, and we already know that we could build this from home very easily. So it is a reasonable item in order to do. Now, normally I would also tell you to define a backup product, but we're not going to get into that for this particular tutorial. But we are going to go ahead and define those hypotheticals, which is to think about, do you have the space at home? And how much space do you need? How much startup money do you need? Honestly, in order to get like some of those candle kits, those beginning setup, generally, I think you could spend somewhere around a budget of $200 to $500 to get you up and running easily to start developing your first few products. So this is definitely an item that we could move forward with. So here's how the actionable steps actually work, okay? You're going to do a light dive, and then you're going to do into a deep dive. And it's going to look like this. The light dive, generally, we're just going to look at this item through the lens of the seller first, then the buyer, then the reviewer. And from here, we're going to make a decision, okay? So looking at through the lens of the seller is just to see how this item is being positioned right now, what people are selling, what the trend kind of feels like, just an overall look of what's going on. It's just a walk in the park of what we're doing. Then we're going to go through the buyer's lens, which is to check out the reviews on these sellers that we're looking up the item with, and then see what they're talking about, how they feel about the item. It could be positive or negative reviews, but there's always something to learn based on what people said. The point is to listen at this point. Then we could jump on YouTube to see what some reviewers are saying on your average items. But, you know, candles, essentially, it's a pretty straightforward item. So you're probably not going to need too many of the reviewers' lens on this. But at this point, we're going to make a decision. Are we going to continue with this process? And if we are, then we have to dive into the scholar's lens. Now, what the scholar's lens is the idea of knowing the mechanics, how to make stuff, you know, pretty much the ins and outs, all the inner workings of the particular niche, because you need some technical knowledge in order to do this business. So once you have decided we're going to commit to candle making, then we're going to jump into the scholar's lens, right? And then we're going to review the reviewers again, because once you have the background knowledge, you could go back and check out like all those YouTube reviewers to figure out exactly who the presenters and the shills are and who the actual reviewers who really know what they're talking are. And now, because you have figured out who's who, you can now use YouTube as more of a trusted source rather than just, you know, your average talking points. After that, with the information that you know, you want to revisit the buyer's lens to see if anything has changed for you, and then revisit again the seller's lens, because the sellers that you review are the people who are going to be your future competitors. So the more you know about them, when your business begins, you can hit the ground running. So when you think about these two steps of the light dive into the deep dive it actually kind of sort of looks like this, the whole step process from beginning to end. So we're going to perform that today, specifically with the candles. So right off the bat, of course, we're just going to jump on Etsy right here and then look up candles. So this is a very simple search for the word candle. Now you can see on the left over here, I have a special plugin on my Chrome browser. So what you need to do in order to get this extension that I highly recommend, it's called Everbee. So you go onto this website called everbee.io and then go sign up for a free account first. Then you go back to Google to find the Everbee extension for Chrome and then add that into your Chrome browser. Then once you go on Etsy, you will have this extension. I'll show you guys how to use that in a second. So we're going to look at candles over here and then just see like who the best sellers are. Now, this is what I love about Etsy always, right? There's so much information that's in front of you. It's all about how you look at it. The Etsy's picks, popular now, best sellers. These are all very, very important things. I want to show you guys something real quick before we get further into the lesson, right? This guy was particularly stand out to me because his Dr. Pepper cans, right? So it says best sellers over here. Now, here's where it gets really, really important. You look at the reviews for this item and you look at the reviews for the shop, all right? I've already scoped out this guy. So this person, okay, Anodyne Bath Company, right, is doing very, very well with these soda can candles, but not all of the candles. You have to research their store one by one to see which one's doing good and which one's new, not so good. So this one, when you look at this, he has reviews, 148 reviews just for the Dr. Pepper candles, and the reviews for this shop is 516. Yo, somewhere like 28% of his business in the reviews is just on these Dr. Pepper candles. Now, don't be fooled by the price over here. You're going to be turned off by like, man, he's selling it so cheap though. But when you select the option over here, it's the 1.5-inch sample size. It's this little thing that's $1.65, okay? Now, when you're talking about the 7.5, just the smallest size over here, that thing is $9.13, okay? And then once you get to the big one, this thing is $16.50, all right? So there is definitely good margins to be made over here. But there's something else that I want to show you, that if I go ahead and deep dive specifically this guy's store, I could find out over here like what's selling good and what's not selling as good. So immediately, right, if I pulled up a couple of these, I could show you, right, that the Mountain Dew ones, when you click on this, check this out. Mountain Dew Trio candles. He's got one review over here, and then it's all the other stuff. So the Mountain Dew stuff, granted, it's brand new and it looks very flashy and it's a really good listing. It's actually not doing that well. So what is actually doing well? The Diet Coke ones over here. Look, this is 184 reviews on the Diet Coke one. We just saw 154 reviews for the Dr. Pepper one and another 184 for just the Diet Coke one. Yo, half of this guy's business is Dr. Pepper and Diet Coke cans. I just really needed to point that out to you guys, that it's the way we approach how we research, you know, these sellers through the lens of the seller that's so powerful, that you have to start with this step first to get a real good bearing on the direction of the company. So once we understand it's stuff like this, okay, this industry is pretty good. You just got to get creative somehow. Honestly, how creative is this? Not bad. I give it a 5, you know what I mean? But the point is that people are moving these items and they're selling pretty good. So let's come back over here real quick, okay? And I want to show you that like some of the best picks over here, you'll notice, are all of these dessert candles. So I wanted to show you this extension over here, which is the product analysis tool of Everbee. Have you ever used Jungle Scout? Pretty sure you have. A lot of people talk about Amazon FBA, and you have to use Jungle Scout in order to find blah, 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 right? So this is pretty much the same idea. I have Jungle Scout as well. Sometimes I Jungle Scout something on Amazon just to get a rough idea of what's going on, as well as its opportunity scores and stuff like that. But as far as Everbee is concerned, right, you actually have to pay in order to get the monthly sales, monthly revenues, total sales, and stuff like that. I'm going to tell you guys, don't pay. I'm going to tell you how to use this thing in a way so that you don't really have to pay for it, okay? Because if you have to upgrade this thing, they want $19.99 monthly in order to do this. Yo, if I had, I'm not even going to be doing this all the time, every single day, right? So when I use this stuff, it's just going to be like sporadically when I have a new industry that I'm trying to get into. So I'm really not going to pay $19.99 a month for like, they'll build annually for a whole year just to constantly do this. I'm just going to research every now and then in depth, and then I'm done. So at best, I might sign up for this, for 1 month, and then I would get out of it immediately. But I still don't think it's worth $30 for the whole month. So here's how you would use it. I would tell you to sort by average reviews first. And I think that is the best, most powerful thing. You know why? Because you can't leave a review unless you bought something. So therefore, when you think about the average reviews that's left for every single item out there, you could pretty much treat it as its conversion rate for the product itself. So few things, right? Number one is the listing age and like how long it's been around, right? So the shop age, it says 44 months over here, listing age 47. I don't see how a listing could be longer than the shop age, but okay. Anyways, the point is how long a listing has been around and the amount of reviews that it has and the amount of average reviews that it gets every single month is very, very important, because then you could click on these like so, right? And then click view on Etsy to view this particular seller and then see how they're doing, and then see that what they're selling, what they're pricing it at, how they're positioning this item, what their titles look like, so that you could reverse engineer what their keywords that they're using, right? And then we could go ahead and then see what people are saying about this to give us a very, very good grasp of what we should be doing. So when you look at this item and the amount of views that it's getting, amount of reviews that it's getting, you could have an idea of how well that it's selling. And that's the way that I think that you should be using the Everbee plugin over here. So when I come back to this portion, right, I could already sort by what are the best selling stuff. And based on the best selling stuff, I want to make some of my decisions with. So one of the directions that I wanted to go with, because back into our framework, is to talk about getting very, very specific. So when we talk about getting specific, okay, I have an item over here that I wanted to show you guys. Let me get these stuff out of the way first, which is this one, okay? This lady is Candle Serendipity. She's away right now, okay? Her name is Amy Kim, and she makes amazing, amazing candles. Look how nice this candle looks. I'm just gonna blow this up for you guys. And the whole concept of it, right? But let me zoom out a second. How much is this thing? This is $44 for this little candle, all right? Now you're gonna think to yourself, wow, that's really overwhelming, because how do I make something like this? We'll get to that. So when we look at their store and all the different candles that they're selling and their, reviews and stuff like that, and what people have to say about that, again, learn this stuff. Spend the time to look through all of these reviews, because it's information that you're definitely going to need later on. So when I come back to talking about, just searching for candles, right? So candles, right? Like this. I've noticed that some of the most appealing candles, and Etsy's pick to me, is something like this, which is the dessert candle, right? So over here, I'm going to just add that into my search, which is dessert candle. Look how nice these things look. I'm actually kind of blown away for a person that, like, I just openly tell you right now, I can't stand candles, because I guess it's just the way that, Yankee Candle put itself together, and the scents were so strong that it always, like, was off-putting to me. But when I look at every single one of these photos individually in this catalog, I think they're amazing. They're absolutely stunning to look at. Look at this thing. Right? We'll pull some of these up over here. Look at these candles. For some of you at home, I mean, are you even aware that, like, candle technology has got up to this point where, it looks like a drink? It looks like an actual dessert. So I think that, like, when you look at the prices of these things and how easily they're actually put together, once you study from the scholar's lens, and then you understand the whole, inner workings of stuff, exactly how to build these things, you'd be surprised at how easy it is to create this stuff and how high of a price you could mark them up for. Look at all these different kinds of candles that you can make over here, right? Some of these candles, they don't, to be honest, they don't even look that nice. This guy does a very, very good job of it because, you know, his blueberries actually look like real blueberries. I've seen a couple of candles where the blueberries were like incredibly artificially blue, and you know what? They sell anyways. So there's this particular listing that I really want to share with you guys, which is from the Hello Organic shop, right? Look, it's $168 for a 12 pack of the candles. That's really worth your time and money to ship it out to people. So look at the options that they have. You could do a 12 pack for $168, which no labels on it, and then 12 pack that has their labels on it, which is, you know, just the Hello Organic with like whatever the flavor is, and then a custom label for $175. Okay. What is this? It's just a sticker. It's customized candle by just basically printing out a sticker, right? Okay, so one of the reviews over here caught my attention a lot, and I really wanted to share that with you guys. So I'm gonna blow this up over here, and it says, we use these as a save the date invitation with our guests, and they were a hit. They received so many compliments about the quality and scent. This is exactly the point that I'm trying to make. Number one, people are using this as a gift idea to give away. Think about it. If it's somebody's wedding, if you position this item as a wedding gift, you know how many they're going to buy based on how many guests that they have to give them to. And then on top of that, right, it's the same principle that when people buy this item, what are they doing, right? It's not that they're trading their money for the candle. They're trading their money about all the compliments that they're going to be getting. It's really all about that sentiment that they're trying to purchase, that they're going to trade for later on. So their mind is focused in that direction. And that's what makes this such a killer business. So now that we pretty much covered exactly stuff from the seller's lens and a little bit of the buyer's lens, let me jump into something else. Okay, so plot twist, no reviewer's lens for this particular example, because candles is kind of a simple, straightforward item that you really don't need that much, you know, lens of the reviewer to understand exactly what this product is. Instead, I would ask you guys to take a detour and use this approach instead, which is go search a day in the life of a candle maker. Because what I did over here, you can see in my search bar, I put a day in the life of a candle because I just want to cast a wider net and see all the search results that I get. Because what happens here is that you want to see exactly what they're going through to know whether or not you should jump into this as well. To say to yourself, wow, after seeing their story, I think that I can do that as well. So when you watch these type of particular videos, right, what you want to do is that you want to pay attention to their workflow efficiency, the production challenges, the business operations and stuff like that. You want to see like the common struggles that the candle makers try to face every single day, right? Because once they communicate exactly what their issues are, then you can anticipate them and either avoid them or know exactly how to deal with them when the time comes. So there's so many different kinds of candle making, you know, stories out there of how they did stuff, studio vlogs and whatever. And from here, you could get exactly, you know, what they're doing in their day-to-day operations, what their marketing and branding strategies are. So a couple of tips that I would definitely give you guys when watching these types of videos is to watch their packaging and presentation, as well as the time to profit ratio of how they're operating their business. But more importantly, all of the unexpected costs and challenges, because ultimately, you see, the hurdles in life that you overcome is what makes you a better person today than you were yesterday. So therefore, when you think about how that applies to business, they become the barrier that separates you from everyone else. So while others are left out in the cold, frustrated by the minor challenges and making excuses and stuff, you're already in the in because you face them head on. So that layer of resistance becomes a protective moat for your business, you know, keeping out all of the amateurs who are just looking for a quick flip. By now, we should have a very good lay of the land of whether or not we want to get into this business, and it's time to commit. Now, when we commit, we have to jump into the scholar's lens and understand the inner workings, all the fundamentals, the mechanics, how to make candles and stuff like that. So for that, I highly, highly recommend that we jump onto YouTube and look at all sorts of tutorials. Now, the most basic tutorial of any kind of craft business like this is videos like this that says the must-have of all the supplies that you need to make candles from home. So what I love about this particular video is that it's all divvied up into the proper chapters, and it already says the pouring pitcher, the pot, electric burner, thermometer, scale, fragrance oils, and gloves. So basically the idea is that, if you watch this, it's going to give you the ins and outs and exactly what you need to pick up in order to start your business from home. Another video that I thought was really cool was this one. This is Evan and Caitlin. They try out stuff on their channel all the time. So what they did was that they purchased two candle making kits, a professional one and a basic one. And I watched this video so that you don't have to. And what ended up happening was that the kit on the left, which is the cheap kit that was only $20, was actually the better kit out of the two. It was more versatility, it heated up quicker, and basically every single professional candle maker out there basically uses this cheaper kit, except they have a more industrial size. While this one had a lot of features in it, but it was actually slower to use, even though certain things were a little more accurate in the pour, but it wasn't as versatile and, open to freestyle like candle making as much as the cheaper kit was. So shocking, you know what I mean? The difference in the value. I think they paid $85 for the one on the right and $20 for the one on the left. So definitely, if you're going to start making candles and stuff, turns out that any basic kit is actually just good enough. The next one is this particular video where she talks about exactly how to dye all of the candles into different colors. So this one, I'm just going to play a little bit of what she said over here, and we'll have a quick listen.
Another great tip to remember is that with each type of dye, your colors will appear darker when they're being mixed in hot wax. So when you think that you've achieved your desired color, take a couple drips out and drip on a white piece of paper. It will quickly dry and you'll see a more true color. I'm going to do that now with the diamond dye chips.
So essentially what I've learned from this video is that you could use like these dye chips, right? Because that way you could count how many chips that you put into your vat of wax, or you could use the drippers. Now, in the past, if you use like things with like drippers or whatever, you got to be more careful not to put too many extra drops by accident with a heavy hand. So I feel as if there's definitely pros and cons to using both of them. But ultimately at the end over here, I'm just going to fast forward this real quick, that you could see that her paper test allowed you to see, right, that when the wax is hot, it's actually going to be a darker color. And then when the wax has cooled off, then it matches exactly what you're going to create over here. So now that we understand, a lot of these things, there's still a lot of tutorials out there that I recommend that you spend a lot more time going through the scholar's lens so that you have a deeper understanding of the products. On the left over here, I've already pulled up Shein, right? And Shein, I'm just gonna blow this up for you guys, that I've already put in like, wax molds and the color dyes and the color making kits and stuff like that. So you can see over here that you could purchase a whole kit with the melting pot and everything, and it comes with some soy wax for you guys and the wicks in order to get started, right? Or you could just buy over here like pounds and pounds of soy wax directly. This was the dye chips that they already have. So all of the things that you need to make this stuff, you could actually find on Shein. You could also find it on Temu as well, but we wanted to focus on Shein for the sake of saying that, like, look, sometimes when you can't find a good price over there, you might want to toggle between this site or the other, because they both have warehouses in the United States so that you could get your stuff a lot sooner and you don't have to worry about customs every now and then. So basically everything that you need will be right here. Okay. Now I also wanted to show you that a lot of this stuff, right, you need the wax molds in order to make like very, very creative things. So once you've seen stuff like, the strawberry shortcake things, the fruit stuff, especially when they put it on top of, a lot of whipped cream and, looking type of candles, this is how it's done. So if you just type in wax mold right here and then start scrolling through, you could get a whole bunch of ideas. Look at these like little Fruit Loop stuff and little chocolate bits and whatnot. And then we could create different types of dessert candles and be really competitive in the marketplace. So aside from this, it's also the container. I even found the container on Shein as well. So look at these, right? It has the wooden lid so that you don't even have to put out the flame. You just put the lid on top. It'll kill the oxygen and then the flame will go out. And you could actually, put a label on these things, and now you have your own jars, right? So they have the jars in other colors, I believe, right? A black jar over here and an amber jar over here for, you know, maybe some of those like smoky, woody flavors and stuff, and they would pair well together. So I just wanted to show you guys that you could get a lot of really, really cool stuff on Shein. But here's something else that I thought was super interesting, right? So earlier we talked about how to create those really designer types of candles. And this is what I personally came across. So when I blow this up, when you look at this, you could already tell, right? For sure, you could probably hop back onto Shein, find yourself some coffee bean type of wax molds, and there you go. I made coffee bean molds, right? But the question is, how do you make this kind of whipped cream stuff? This is what blew my mind because I had no idea that this is how it was actually made. So I'm going to play this for you guys real quick and we'll watch it together.
Here are some quick tips for whipping wax. Right off the bat, I would recommend having upper body strength because I was not prepared. Now, you can technically do this by hand if you don't have a hand mixer or absolutely anything else to do that day. It will take much longer and it won't get as fluffy, but it is doable. I definitely recommend using a hand mixer, just not one that you'll also be using for food because gross. 464 is my favorite wax to use for this technique. I wait until the melted wax cools to about 120 degrees Fahrenheit and then I pour it into a big old bowl. Once the wax begins to resemble like a thick whipped cream, you're good to go. You can scoop this right out of the bowl and put it on your candles. You can use an ice cream scooper or a spatula. I like to use a piping bag, but you can use whatever you have on hand.
Yo, this is exactly like baking. Does that not look exactly like frosting food, whipped cream? So then when we come back here and you look at exactly what this is, look, every single one of their designs over here, right? This is exactly what I was talking about earlier, right? The blueberries are so like, you know, fake blue, but look, it sells anyway. So what does it matter? But the point is they created different kinds of candles over here, right? And you use that whipped cream method and it's just a solid candle at the bottom and then a couple of molds up top with like the wick coming down to it. And boom, there you go. We've created a designer candle, right? Now, some of these candles even have mica inside of it. And if you watched another episode that I created, we talked about, you know, specifically getting mica. So if I had to go over to, you know, Shein over here and then look up mica, right? Mica powder. Is it mica powder? There you go. Like this. Look at this. 24 colors, 20 colors, like all sorts of mica that you could purchase, right? So that we could come back here and then I could create, you know, little stuff like this. So I would add mica into the whipped cream. I would add mica into little heart molds and stuff. And then we just make a baby blue solid candle first with half of the jar. Print out a sticker on top of this, boom, we have an item now that could sell a 12-pack for $175 to weddings and stuff like that. How awesome is this business? And look at how much people are willing to pay for it. I get plenty of reviews on this stuff. So after jumping through all the hoops of, you know, the seller's lens, the buyer's lens, everything over here, we now have an excellent business plan that we could put together. We could innovate stuff and we could catch up to the rest of the herd. So fellas, I already know what you're thinking. I'm not very creative. I don't want to make candles. Peg, what do? I got you. Check this out. So I have this item over here, okay? And what it is that it is something called sand wax. Now, sand wax has been around since the 1990s, actually. However, most of us who are not really into candles don't really know about this stuff. And to be honest, a lot of the listings that are on Etsy as far as sand wax goes are actually blowing up this past 1 or 2 years. So it's actually just been around not that long, but it's about how creative you are with this item. So I'm just going to play a little bit of this video. I'm going to keep the sound off and talk about it a bit because this wax stuff is in pebbles. So it's exactly like sand. It looks like, you know, granular styrofoam, if anything else. So what you do is that you stick your wick into it and then you would light it up as a regular candle just using a bowl of some sort. But here's where it gets really cool, okay? So they lit up the candle and then after a while, right, you see the candle is lit over here. But here's the big difference about this type of candle. Essentially what happens is that after it dries, okay, now he could go ahead and then lift the remaining candle from the rest of it, kind of like kitty litter. And now you could go ahead and shake up the container and reset the candle. So basically every single time you have a fresh candle. Now, what's even crazier about this is that I haven't even thought of the safety feature of this thing, which is basically if he takes the candle and then he just tips it over like that, it extinguishes itself. So if you have children in the house, if you got dogs or whatever, knocking over one of these candles, you're actually very, very safe. So another cool feature over here was just him, lighting the candle in his hand. So there's a lot of interesting things that you could do about it. So when we come back here and then we look up like, candle, sand, wax, stuff like that, there's a whole bunch of listings out here that sell exactly this. So when we look at this particular listing, check this out. This is $22.99 per bag of the wax sand, the sand wax stuff, okay? And you could select different colors and different scents, and then it comes with a little pack of like 5 wicks and stuff. Now, what you can do is that if you have the money and the startup capital for this, then you could jump on Alibaba.com and check this out. The listing is right here. How much you want for a bag of this? $2.85, right? For a kilo of this stuff, okay? And then over here, they're selling this thing. I don't know exactly what the weight is. It might be like, just a pound of this stuff. But look, a kilo of this stuff is like 2.25 pounds or something like that. But look exactly what this is. Isn't this exactly this? Look. I'm gonna pull this up over here, right? And then what is this? It's this one, right? So isn't this the exact same thing? Yeah, there you go. It's the exact same like resealable, Ziploc pouch, right? Except this even has your logo and stuff printed on it, and this is just a sticker. So if you really wanted to just start up this business and then just give it a shot, you could buy a couple of bags of these things, not even print any logos on it, print your own stickers at home until you've established some footing on this product, and then go back to your supplier and say, all right, print my name on it, let's keep going. So not only just put this item on Etsy, but definitely Etsy, eBay, Amazon, just put it up everywhere, right? Because you have the constant supply in order to do this. And this is an item that where you get it for $2.85 over here, and we're selling it for, bam, $22.99 over here. But there's something else about this that I want to show you guys that's a little bit shocking to me, that it seems as if they kind of fell asleep on this, all right? There was one that stood out to me a lot, which is basically stuff like this. But even more, this one is nasty, guys. I like this a lot, all right? So what's going on over here? He's selling 500 grams of the sand wax and with the free wicks and stuff like that. But what happened is that he didn't actually put this together. All you do is like you pick a color and then you pick the option or whatever. And these are just examples of stuff. Yo, why don't you just go ahead and source some of these bowls and then source some of these miniatures and whatever, and basically you have like a theme type of candle going on where you didn't really have to make any candles at home at all, right? I would just go ahead and bundle a kit where you get the bowl, you get these miniature seashells as well as this starfish and stuff, right? And then I would even do a video showing exactly, not only does it create that kind of atmosphere, whether you put this, in your bathroom or in the living room or something like that, but you could also reset these candles by taking out the wick, shaking it up, and then you have a fresh candle every single time. So I would do a whole video, like a 15-second one, to really convey this in my listings, right? And then we can make all sorts of other different kinds of themes. Like over here, you have like these rocks, and then you just gently comb the sand a little bit with like the wick first to create this kind of Zen palette type of deal. I think a lot of people would go for this stuff. I'm really surprised that he has these as sample photos, yet he's not selling them as is. So when you think about exactly what you could do with this, I think I found something over here, right? So basically here, when we jump back onto Shein, I entered a dollhouse beach chair, okay? And what was hysterical about this is that I wasn't even particularly looking for it, but the point is that I was thinking about doing some kind of a beach theme, and then you would have like a small, beach chair, a small beach ball and stuff like that, or like some of these dolls or something, and then just bundle that together with a nice looking bowl or tray to create that feel. And then you could go ahead and then sell that for, $30, $35. That would create tons of value. Look at this. I even found like the little starfish over here, and I found the little seashells and stuff, right? So I would do something like that. I would also do the Zen one, possibly some kind of forest one with like a woody, smoky type of wax for the scent that matches together. And then I also think about like maybe we do a Christmas one where we get like little figurines of like these Christmas trees, like these pines and stuff and pine cones, and then just throw them into the bowl along with the sand wax, and it would create this atmosphere. And as long as we could take beautiful photos of it, we could go ahead and come back and recreate exactly listings like this that have that kind of emotional kind of, you know, inducing type of buying, you know what I mean, to get people to pick this item up. I definitely think this item would work. Okay, so I already know what some of you are already thinking, okay? But Peg, this thing is probably a little too saturated, probably not a good fit. No, actually, despite all of the videos that I just showed you about YouTube of all of the people who are doing this stuff and all the people who are teaching this stuff, on top of all of the sellers that are already on Etsy, the market is actually not saturated. Because people who are even watching this video right now, they're not going to do everything that they see or hear. In fact, they give themselves a whole bunch of excuses not to do stuff. I'll do it later, but then they never get around to it. I'm not creative enough. I don't have the time for this. I don't want to spend the money on it. I think it's a waste of money, etc., etc. They come up with all sorts of excuses. But the ones who are willing to take business head on are the ones who are going to make it. And every single day, as you get better at this stuff, this is how you start closing the gap between you and the people who are established out there, while separating the gap between you and those daydreamers who are always making excuses every single time things get a little bit rough. Anyways, guys, that is the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like. And if you learned something, please consider subscribing. As always, I'll see you guys in the next. Take care.